Our next speaker will be Professor Stefano Coaccioli. He's the Chief of Internal Medicine and Rheumatology at the University of Perugia in Italy. He informed me that he was born near the village of Vinci, where Leonardo da Vinci hails from. And this afternoon he was going to talk to us about the European epidemiology of chronic pain in the working population. Professor
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it working? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. In the field of chronic pain, pain in the working population, in the workers, represents a fundamental problem next to pain in the elderly, not only for industrial workers, but also for the so-called blue collars, and even for white collars. And even in terms of knowledge of the problem and knowledge of the prevention, in terms of therapeutic approach, and as well as the clinical outcome. In particular, there is now a wide evidence that the localization of chronic pain is not only in the site, in the joints involved in the work itself, but also in other musculoskeletal sites, with the consequences of a systemic impairment and a reduction of the whole articular performance. As you can see, the impact of chronic pain on daily activities and as well as on working activities is dramatic in terms of working outside the home, walking to go to home, and exercising, in other words, to prevent. And the employment status of which responded to the interview, 1 person on 4 report a loss of work. The number of day loss is a huge, very huge number. The main number I found in Netherlands, but as you can see, the mean days lost average is quite 8 days for a person. So even the change in the employment, a lost job, 1 person on 5, and the presence of depression at the diagnosis and during the course of chronic pain represents a very high percentage of persons, and the change in job due to pain is represented in all over Europe, in UK as well as in France, in Germany, in Italy, as well as in Spain, in Poland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and so on. And as you can see, the worker may change responsibility on his jobs, change entirely his jobs, and first of all, last but not least, with a significant amount of depression during the chronic pain. These are other results in Netherlands, in Belgium, in Finland, Ireland, Switzerland, Austria, and Israel finally. And as you can see, the percentage is very significant and very high. As you can see, in the general population, the prevalence of chronic pain ranges in about 25%, but the localization is all rheumatic and rheumatological localization in terms of back and neck pain, 66 and 32%, joint more than 50%, and head 1 1/3. The number of persons involved is more than 20 million, ranging from 18 to 64 years, and these populations population represents about 10% of the European workforce. The last days are ranging quite 400 millions of they lost for pain. And to remember the rheumatological situation that leads to chronic pain, not only inflamed joint but the damaged joint, osteoarthritis, in other words, and low back pain, and in particular low back pain represents the major cause, the more frequent cause that workers ask and help. And we report some data in which, as you can see, the intervention in rehabilitation and occupational medicine, we have to improve this area, as well as another aspects is we have to minimize the source of pain during the job, and of course to lose weight if the patient is overweight, and so on. This is an example in farmers, vineyard workers, and as you can see, both in men and in women, the joint involved are the neck and shoulder, but the back pain arises to 50% of the involvement, and so the floor liars. This is a very hard job. As you can see, the distribution of joints involved are those involved in that particular work, but also other joint position, other joints in terms of a wall in development of the osteoarthritis in joints not bearing the heavy weight and the weight of the joint of the works. So the scaffolders reported chronic pain with a high incidence, high recurrence, and high prevalence. And we arrive finally to the office workers, in which we have particular attention we put on the ergonomy of working position to avoid this degree of pain that ranges from moderate to mild, and the duration from more than one month. And so the joint involved the neck, shoulder, and upper arm complaints, and the pain is distributed in men and in women, but the problem in women is higher in comparisons to men. And finally, also in a retired, in age of retirement, the neck pain and the back pain is a problem due to the long exposure to the risk factors. And to conclude, if we unrelieved and if we untreated the chronic pain in workers, but also in a general population, you have a sort of cascade from cardiac complication, respiratory, gastrointestinal, impaired immune function, personal consequences, therapy, as you can read, but one of the most important problem in these topics is the increasing in the economic burden, but Anna Wawrowski will speak about this after me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.